Everything you said sounds like a skit. Nope, that's how stupid. That is how fucking stupid this administration is. That's how stupid American politics is in general. That's why so many people from all around the world tune in to my broadcast to see what is the next thing that will happen.
No, it's I call it the Epstein Hoax. Takes a lot of time and effort. Instead of talking about the great achievements we've had,
he's not being shy about it. Like, he's not being timid. He's not over here like under his breath saying these things. He is actually just full blown multiple times saying how stupid people are if they care about Epstein case and all of the evil people that have gotten away with it that are actively being covered for by this administration. Also, the previous administration as well. He has latched onto this titty hard and is trying to suck all the milk it can possibly get from this narrative that nobody is believing. No real people, that is. He is so desperately on his hands and knees, crawling, groveling, begging people to move on from it, trying to even give it like a title. Their new scam is what we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax.
Yeah. Normally, he's a pretty good marketer, but this was really bad, where he's like, everyone's calling it that. You should call it that too. It's like, no, I don't think people are calling it that, man. I think you want people to call it that, but I don't think people are gonna call it that, big dog. That's just, yeah, when your goat is washed, that's what this is. Do you think he genuinely doesn't understand that his base actually cares about this? No. And I've said this a lot, and I will keep repeating this. People used to get more mad at me when I used to say this in the last administration. In moments that matter is just a regular ass Republican. He is the logical conclusion of Republican politics. And for that reason, he already did his job. He already got the fucking tax cuts. So it doesn't matter. Yes, he likes being liked. He likes being loved. He likes being admired. He's a narcissist. But beyond that admiration, he did his job already. He got the agenda. He got the agenda that he set forth. So everything after that is just like bonus points. And obviously, as a regular ass Republican, once he got the tax cuts in, it's over. He's making his money on fucking cryptocurrency schemes. He's farming the government for you know, Trump properties all around the world. He got a nice little fucking jet from Qatar, right? He's doing all that shit. He's also giving like some crumbs to the base as far as like doing mass ICE raids all around the country, things like that. So he's giving some cookies to the white supremacists that really want mass deportations to continue to take place. I think it's because he won. He already won. So everything else from this point on is just like, I don't think he gives a shit, you know?
His own base now. He says, let these weaklings continue forward and do the Democrats' work. Don't even think of talking of our incredible and unprecedented success.
Nitpick, the September 2019 Epstein case was federal and in New York, not Florida. As Florida Attorney General, Bondi would only be involved in state cases. She also left office in January 2019, so she sucks, but she didn't really have anything to do with the Epstein case, first or second. Fuck all these people, obviously. Oh, she was a ASA in Tampa in 2008 also. No, that's not an actually. That's valid. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification, chatter. I'm wrong. I'm wrong for saying Attorney General Pam Bondi had any involvement whatsoever in the initial case. The initial case was conducted by Alexander Acosta, who was a prosecutor. And then I recall the local police department also, losing some tapes, and you know, in ways in which they had like flubbed the initial investigation and the second investigation as well. There's always some like inconsistencies. I do think that even as Attorney General, though, the idea that you don't have any involvement with like an active criminal that has operated from Florida is still wrong. Like there are things that they could have done. There are things that she could have done as well. I believe you can, like, when the Miami Herald article came out, I don't know if Pam Bondi was still the Attorney General, but I'm pretty sure they could have seized, like they could have moved on Jeffrey Epstein quickly. Yeah, she was the Attorney General when the Miami Herald article came out, and there was a lot of conversations about like reopening the Jeffrey Epstein case. That's the extent of her involvement, rather lack of involvement. Yeah, she could have brought a state case against Epstein as the Florida Attorney General anytime from 2011 to 2019, no question. That is the extent of her involvement, which is to not do anything from 2011 to 2019. Because like the Southern District of New York opened a case against Jeffrey Epstein, right? Southern District of New York opened the case. And that's where they were like, I mean, but in Florida, they could have done so as well, or even before the Southern District of New York. But I guess, it's better that the Southern District of New York opened up the Jeffrey Epstein case instead of her anyway. Would have taken place if Pam Bondi was involved in that.
Because I don't want their support anymore. You can literally hear him crossing his arms in that statement. Well, I don't want their support anymore anyway. Like a child mad at their parents because they didn't get a cookie after dinner or something. It's so pathetic. I really don't understand how just a normal person could see all of this and still just write it off as no big deal and be supportive of the way he is handling this shit and the administration, the way they're handling it. It's incomprehensible to me. Now, I understand people who are...
What's stopping from destroying the files? I mean, if you want my honest speculation, wee-woo speculation, it's literally sexual blackmail of elites. It requires a lot of work. They work really hard for those. They're not just going to fucking cast that aside. They're not going to burn it in a pit. That's literally decades of sexual blackmail, potentially. That is incredibly valuable sexual blackmail. I don't think they're just going to toss it aside. I mean, dude, this guy is a fucking convicted pedophile sex trafficker who was directly involved with people that we know were outed by victims who happen to be members of the royal family, famous professors at Harvard who also were on Jeffrey Epstein's legal team and are Trump boosters and Trump defenders, former presidents, former secretaries of state, Hillary Rodham Clinton, Bill Clinton. Like, what are we talking about? You can't just say fucking everything is Alex Jones because something just like smells weird, you know? And we also know from the investigation that took place that there were thousands of hours, terabytes filled, according to Pam Bondi now, it's just child sexual assault, sexual abuse material. But initially, there were names written on those fucking folders, and the motherfucker had cameras everywhere, in every room. Why did he have cameras in every room, in all of his homes, and tapes of people with names written on the fucking folders as a prolific sex trafficker connected to elites from all around the planet? What do you think is going on there? You think he just has an eye as an amateur filmmaker? You think that's what was going on? Why did he have cameras in the fucking bathrooms, for example? What the fuck? What is that about? Why did people like Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, go to his house? Like, what do you think was going on? Yeah, he was a streamer house. How did he make all the money? Why did so many people like Les Wexner basically give him power of attorney? Other disgraced financiers in New York. Why did they keep giving him hundreds of millions of dollars? What do you think was going on? I just don't think we'll ever know the full the full extent of this. But it's crazy when people just go, dude, this is just a conspiracy theory. It's like, no, it's not. I do think it's very suspicious, but powerful people go to rich financiers' house isn't exactly shocking, even without the trafficking stuff. No, the shocking part about it is that these are not just powerful people going to rich financiers' house. These are powerful people that were directly tied to intelligence. Like the former head of the CIA having meetings with this guy is a fucking big deal, especially past the point of like everybody knowing he is a pedophile sex trafficker. Do you see what I'm saying?
Tending to be okay with it because they're getting some doubloons under the table for it, no doubt. But this, like any sensible person would see this and immediately smell the shit. It's just so fucking nuts how blatant this is. And it's, I just can't help but keep talking about it. I can't stop yapping about it. It is unreal.
I don't think there's that many elites involved with stuff like this. Yes, there are. At what point do you stop indulging the conspiracy? But I'm sus because there's not much evidence out there. Okay, but you can't say. How the fuck is everyone a pedo? I never said every single person involved with Jeffrey Epstein is a pedophile. You're just adding shit that I did not say. I'm always very explicit with what I'm talking about, where I say, what level of involvement do these societal elites have with Jeffrey Epstein? What kind of illicit activities they may or may not have engaged in? What are on the fucking, what are on the actual terabytes of data? It's just so strange where people just go, oh, like a big part of what I do is I spend a great deal of time talking about conspiracies and explaining to you what the logical outcome is of conspiracies. Like, I do this for every single famous conspiracy theory. I do it for conspiracy theories that aren't even that like big, and I've done so because I combat misinformation. It's a major part of what I do. This is not like the other Alex Jones shit that they talk about. Okay, to say that there's not much evidence here is so fucking insane. There is evidence. We just don't know what the evidence is because they won't reveal it. That's the problem. That's the reason why Trump is like, oh, there's no evidence. Oh, don't look away. Look away. There is evidence. The fuck do you mean? It's just redacted. And the reason why it's redacted is because the evidence that ties the people named in both the Ghislaine Maxwell case and the Jeffrey Epstein case in the trials were incredibly wealthy and incredibly powerful people. That's the reason why we don't know. So you can't say there isn't evidence. There is, of course, evidence. There's a tremendous amount of evidence. What are you talking about?
Confirm that, and does he ask?
Well, the idea was floated from someone in the president. The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels. And as for his discussions with the attorney general, I'm not sure. Deanna. So much.
Come on, dude. Come on, dude. No, we don't know. We don't know a special prosecutor. No special prosecutor. Come on. Like, there are known victims and known perpetrators. There have been numerous settlements throughout the years. What are we talking about? Like, there are numerous known victims and numerous outed perpetrators. What are we talking about? And a shit ton of settlements that have come out of this. JP Morgan is involved. They had, what you think, like a major bank like JP Morgan is gonna fucking give a $290 million settlement to Jeffrey Epstein victims for no fucking reason? Like, you think that was just for fun? That was just like what do you think? How do you, and this is just stuff that we do know. And everything that gets tied together is obviously in the investigations that were conducted that this administration said they would release information on and refused to do so. Is that not suspicious to you at all? Do you feel like this is just a conspiracy? Or conspiracy theory, sorry, not a conspiracy, because it is a conspiracy to do criminal things. I guess that there's nothing to see here. This is just for fun. JP Morgan and Chase love giving money to people. Famously, that's a thing banks like doing. A U.S. judge on Thursday approved JP Morgan and Chase's $290 million settlement with women who said Jeffrey Epstein abused them and that the largest U.S. bank turned a blind eye to the late financier's sex trafficking. U.S. District Judge Jed Rakoff called the deal a really excellent settlement that he said could prevent future sex trafficking by alerting banks on the consequences of facilitating transactions linked to it. This case sent a message through this very substantial settlement that banking institutions have responsibilities that perhaps were not fully recognized in the past. The deal followed embarrassing disclosures that JP Morgan ignored internal warnings and overlooked red flags about Epstein because he had been a valuable client. Epstein was a JP Morgan client from 1998 to 2013. The bank kept him on even after he was arrested in 2006 on prostitution charges and pleaded guilty 2 years later. JP Morgan did not admit wrongdoing in agreeing to settle. This was a fair and just outcome for the nearly 200 survivors who bravely came forward, JP Morgan spokesperson said after the hearing. What is this? Industrial scale abuse enterprise, far larger than previously believed. Jeffrey Epstein had 1,000 plus victims. This is from Ken Leakenstein. 20 years after Jeffrey Epstein was exposed for his child sex abuse enterprise, the Justice Department this week made a startling revelation. Rather than the dozens of victims previously alleged by the government and media, Justice now says there were over 1,000 victims. Everyone is talking about Epstein again, and from MAGA types furious that the Trump administration is not producing a supposed client list of the mainstream media, which is giddily mocking just about anyone critical of the Justice Department here as conspiracy theorists. One person who doesn't want to talk about it is Donald Trump, who told New York Magazine in 2002 that his buddy Epstein was a fun guy who likes beautiful women as much as I do, many of them on the younger side. Seldom one to shy away from blurting out whatever when asked this week about the Epstein memo, Trump uncharacteristically changed the subject. He admonished the reporter, telling him the question was a desecration to the lives lost in the Texas floods. Trump, of course, hung out with Epstein and feasted on his legendary get-togethers in New York and West Palm Beach, so he probably isn't keen on there being too much transparency there. Oh, my fucking shoulder. But before this becomes a conspiracy theory itself, I note that former President Bill Clinton was also a frequent flyer, especially on the Lolita Express, which took prominent guests to Epstein's private island. Those guests include financiers, billionaires, lawyers, and even a British prince. The names of hundreds, and now indeed possibly thousands of Johns involved in Jeffrey Epstein's clients have never been revealed by the government. Pam Bondi's Justice Department evidently doesn't have the stomach or the inclination to delve much deeper into the matter. The new figure of over 1,000 victims appears in a Trump administration's review of FBI holdings concerning Epstein, a summary of which was released in the form of a 2-page memo earlier this week. 2019 Jeffrey Epstein indictment says dozens of victims. Jeffrey Epstein review in 2025 says over 1,000 victims. We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties, the undated and unsigned memo says. Justice says it reviewed more than 300 gigabytes of data and physical evidence, including over 10,000 downloaded videos and images of illegal child sex abuse material. There is no client list, Justice says in his memo. This despite Bondi herself implying in February that such a list was on her desk. She now says she was referring to the files more generally. There are so many and unanswered questions raised by the release, which also says that there is no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals as a part of his actions. That means that the theories alleging Epstein was operating some kind of operation to collect incriminating information for a foreign government, most notably the Israelis, has also been dismissed by the U.S. government. That part is the reason why I think Trump is saying what he's saying now. I think he got a fucking boss call where they were like, dude, shut the fuck up. We can't take additional reputational damage. I think Jeffrey Epstein's involvement with these rich and powerful people go beyond just sex trafficking. I know a lot of people think that he was just doing blackmail and sex trafficking of minors for like Bill Gates and all these other people. But I think the real reason why they won't release it is because of the actual financial entanglements that he had with so many wealthy people, from Bill Ackman to Bill Gates to Bill Clinton. A lot of Bills, weirdly enough. I just named 3. Both of them are prominent figures on either side of the political party, or, you know, the bipartisan billionaire Bill Gates. That's it. I think it's just, it goes beyond like just a Mossad or CIA-backed sex trafficking operation. And I think the financial entanglements and Jeffrey Epstein being like the connective tissue between a lot of elites and a lot of billionaires and a lot of powerful people in the intelligence community is the real heart of the story. This isn't to say that there weren't like super wealthy people that may or may not have engaged in these illicit acts, whether they were adults that were sex trafficked or minors that were sex trafficked. Both is a likelihood. This is a major part of the story, and that is the most easily identifiable part of the story. That's the easiest to investigate. Paper trails, like financial connections. Do you understand? How did Jeffrey Epstein launder the money? What kind of money laundering network did he have? Why were these people involved with him? That is what I'm looking for when I say we need to see more evidence. That is the redacted side. The forensic accounting that most likely took place, well, to a limited degree, that they refused to talk about. Okay? Memo says that because of this exhaustive search, there's no need for justice or the FBI to disclose anything further. This is a reversal of Trump's promise to his voters that he would take a look at the Epstein case as president. When the Justice Department indicted Epstein in 2019, it repeatedly referred to dozens of minor girls that had been abused. Federal prosecutors reportedly identified 36 underage victims in Florida, in line with the dozens described in the original federal indictment. Consistent with prior disclosures, the Justice Department memo said this week, this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. There was no such prior disclosure that Epstein's victims were so numerous. So yeah. Are the financial entanglements related to blackmail? That's another great question. Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, or Speaker Emerita.
The power of conspiracy theories. Your husband was attacked by a man who'd fallen for them.
That's right.
Is it your sense there's anything the president can do now to get his supporters to move off of the Epstein issue? Should he? Where do you land on that?
You know, again, this is a distraction. This is a distraction. We have major issues right here with things we're voting on today in the Congress. Again, in terms of the rescission that the president and the Senate have sent back over us to cut all of these resources out of helping poor people throughout the world, to be America play its leadership role in soft power to keep us safe and to keep us healthy, so that we viruses know no boundary. And instead,
she's like, nothing to see here. Stop talking about it.
Him about this thing, and his own basis has its own views of what the president should do. I'll leave it up to them to talk it out. But again, whether it's Jeffrey Epstein or Alcatraz, it's all off the subject of what they're doing with this budget that is harmful to the kitchen table, meeting the kitchen table needs of the American people.
I want to make sure I understand what you mean when you say distraction. Do you think that Pam Bondi going to Alcatraz is meant potentially as a distraction from Epstein, which has not gone over well at all with the president's base?
No, I think they're both distractions. I think they're both. I don't think she's going to Alcatraz. I think she's planned to do that. But I think that they're both off the subject of what is happening, changing the character and the culture of America by undermining, by placing huge trillions of dollars of national debt on the for future generations to carry forward at the expense of the health, nutrition, education of the American people.
Just stop talking about it, please, guys. Please stop talking about it. You know, nothing to see here. It's not a big deal.
Are urging a special counsel be appointed to look into the Epstein matter.
It's just crazy that this is like the only. I noticed that the only involvement that the Democrats wanted to have on this story was basically to laugh at Trump and to say, haha, you built an audience that likes conspiracy, and now that audience is coming after you for this fake conspiracy. There are, of course, other Democrats like Ro Khanna, who is taking a different approach here, who is actually saying, like, no, we should see the client list. We should see the evidence that's, readily available. Redact the victims, redact the obvious, horrible material. But there is, like, definitely, like, the Democrats are talking about the Epstein stuff, but not from the perspective that I talk about the Epstein stuff, where they're basically just trying to say, that this is what you see is what you get. This is your chickens coming home to roost moment. You trafficked in conspiracies. Jeffrey Epstein is a conspiracy theory. And now, your audience is yelling at you. How can the Democrats realistically sell this, given that they didn't try to get the Epstein files released over the last 4 years? I feel like that's the first question any voter would have. True, but it doesn't matter. I don't disagree with you. I know the answer to that question. It's the same reason why Trump is not releasing this information, right? Because both Democrats and Republicans are involved. They should just say, hey, this is a new Democratic Party. We're fighters now. We don't care about the past involvement of past old, decrepit administrations. I mean, that's like my fantasy. My fantasy is this is a real labor-backed, actual fighting Democratic Party. That obviously is not going to happen. But at the very least, they can say they didn't campaign on it. It wasn't an issue that was noteworthy at the time. I don't fucking know. I'm not in the business of doing messaging for establishment Democrats.
The president, when asked about that, said yesterday he has nothing to do with it.
Scott, meanwhile, there's a high-profile firing inside the Justice Department. Another one. What do you know about that?
Yeah, the prosecutor is Moren Comey, who's been fired. That name sounds familiar. She's the daughter of former FBI Director James Comey, and she handled, in part, the Sean Diddy Combs case and the Jeffrey Epstein case. The Department of Justice would not comment on why Comey was fired. We do know that she was fired under the presidential authority, which means it was done under the president's name, and the president has had some run-ins with James Comey after firing.
Do you think this story is losing steam? No. Even if the media doesn't cover it, the independent media will never stop talking about this because they never stopped talking about this. They didn't stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein when Biden was president. They didn't stop talking about Jeffrey Epstein when in the beginning of Trump's presidency. It's not a thing that it will lose a little bit of its steam and perhaps mainstream media will stop talking about it. But I don't think it's going to go away. I think people will always remember, and whenever there's like any sort of mention from Trump or anybody else or anything that involves the case, it will come back over and over again.
Firing him in 2017, Tony.
Run-ins, to say the least. Scott,
as I said, this is the one thing that unironically separates Trump from his base.
The idea of a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. Can you confirm that? And has he asked the Attorney General to do this, to appoint a special prosecutor to look it over?
Well, the idea was floated from someone in the media to the president. The president would not recommend a special prosecutor in the Epstein case. That's how he feels. And as for his discussions with the Attorney General, I'm not sure.
Clarify which part of the Epstein hoax is the hoax part?
The president is referring to...
I'm surprised he's actually present for the video. What do you mean? Are you talking about me? You have a pedophile Nazi on your fucking profile picture. I think you got bigger worries than like a Twitch streamer moving away from the camera to take a piss for 25 seconds That's kind of sad, big dog. Like an actual out and about, straight up pedophile Nazi. That's crazy.
The fact that Democrats have now seized on this as if they ever wanted transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein, which is an asinine suggestion for any Democrat to make. The Democrats had control of this building, the White House, for 4 years, and they didn't do a dang thing when it came to transparency.
Okay, but you're here. You're in charge now. That's why people voted for you. Not me, but there are plenty of people in your base that voted for you specifically because of the transparency that you said you would provide. And the real reason why it's an issue now is because you're refusing to provide that transparency, which is precisely the reason why people are asking these questions. Doors open.
In regards to Jeffrey Epstein and his heinous crimes. It was this president.
She's like, hey, remember when the Democrats didn't offer transparency? It's like, okay, but right now, people have an issue with you not offering transparency. Like, you're in charge. What's up with that? Also, another question here obviously is, well, he did die under Trump's watch. What the fuck was that about? He was investigated and prosecuted under Trump's watch. He died in a federal prison under Trump's watch. Trump has said some weird things about both Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. A big part of there's so many different parts of this that, this conspiracy that Trump is involved with, and it's all strange.
Who directed the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to do an exhaustive review of all.
Why is everyone being so disrespectful to Ghislaine Maxwell? Her boyfriend died or maybe was killed. Nobody knows. Why is everyone being so disrespectful to her? I wish her well. Like, that's crazy. That is a crazy thing to say. That's not just like a political gaffe, okay? You are straight up humanizing a sex trafficker and her associate that participated in the sex trafficking, like criminally convicted, okay? When Trump is not exactly known for humanizing people, even who are his allies. Like, that's not like Trump at all.
Files related to Jeffrey Epstein, which they did. The Attorney General and the FBI, led by Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, these are great patriots, some of the most trusted voices in the Republican Party movement. It's part of the reason the president appointed them to these high law enforcement positions, and they spent many months going through all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein, and they concluded what they found in that memo, which they drafted and they released. And so the president has been transparent. He has followed through on his promises to the American people. But he doesn't like to see Democrats and the mainstream media covering this like it's the biggest story that the American people care about. The president has been working so hard this week. On Tuesday, he went to Pennsylvania, where he secured $90 billion in investments for the Commonwealth, for the people of that state. After that, he came back to the Oval Office at 8 p.m. He went in there to whip votes to get the Genius Act signed into law. And because of his efforts, that bill is now going to be signed and passed. The following day, yesterday, he meets with a foreign leader, the King of Bahrain, to secure more investments into this country. And then yesterday afternoon, the president is in the East Room of the White House mourning with parents who have lost their children because of fentanyl, signing a bipartisan piece of legislation. And not a single cable network in this country.
Dude, this is like, they are Democrats, dude. They're behaving like the Democratic Party right now. Come on, look at all the victories. Look at all of Biden's victories. Why are you talking about inflation? Shut the fuck up about inflation. It's not real. It's a hoax. He did NATO. And not a single one of you is talking about how he accomplished AUKUS. It's so fucking funny. It is amazing watching them behave exactly in the exact same ways that the Democrats have behaved. They're losing control. They're losing control over the narrative. And this is what they're good at normally. This is what they do. Now the old tricks are not working. Ironically enough, part of the reason why the old tricks are not working is because they thought they could cynically use the Epstein thing like one of those tricks. They thought they could just like briefly allude to Jeffrey Epstein and then people would just like forget about it and then no one would demand answers, you know?